He was a morbidly obese surgeon destined for an operating table and an early death. Now he's a rebel MD who is fabulously fit and fighting to make America healthy again. This is Stay Off My Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia.
Welcome, folks. This is Stay Off My Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia. And we've got a guest who's staying up really late to talk to us. Phil, why don't you introduce him and let's find out what today's going to be about.
Yeah, definitely. So excited to have Mark Ennis on with us today. Mark, as you'll hear as soon as he starts speaking, is across the pond over in Ireland, and just one of the real interesting people that I've, come across online and talking about low carb, carnivore, all of that good stuff. And I think he brings an interesting perspective to it, which we'll be excited to talk about. With that, Mark, why don't you maybe give a little bit of your background to our audience?
Thanks very much, guys, for having me on in the first place. I'm really happy to be here. I'm from Ireland. My name is Mark. I've been a carnivore coach now for the last 4 years. It wasn't always that way. I grew up with an eating disorder at a very young age. I was always one of those people that struggled with his weight for such a long time. I was anorexic at a very young age. I was obese and a part of my life also.
Both? Gee whiz.
So I'll give you a little quick backstory of how it started off. It started off when I was around 13, 14 years of age. I used to be bullied a lot in school about my weight. I didn't like the way I was. I had no confidence. I would have been one of those people that would have been picked last on the sports team. I would never have confidence to speak to women. And all I wanted to do was just be perfect and just like kind of mix in and be like other people. And every time I looked at these people, I could see they were skinny. They had it all. They had the looks. They had the abs. Everybody was really happy. And I just wanted to be a part of that. And I was like, how am I actually going to fix this? So I remember walking into my local shop. I saw this magazine, this bodybuilding magazine. I picked it up and I got hooked, absolutely hooked. I was like, okay, how am I going to do? I'm going to go home. I'm going to start working out in my room a few days a week. I'm going to go running because at that time I didn't have any money. So I just said, okay, what can I get away with? And that's what I did. I started working out in my room. I implemented running a few days a week, and I did that for about 3 months, and everything went really well. And then my mother turned around and said to me one day, she says, why don't you not just join a gym? And I was like, okay. I went down. I asked the owner, can I use the gym? The owner said, yep, no problem. So I got hooked. I went to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. Then it became addictive. I went every single day. Then I learned a little bit about nutrition, calories, like calorie counting pretty much. I wasn't focusing on macros. I was just focusing on calories. All calories were equal. So I just thought in my head, as long as I'm in a deficit, I'm going to lose weight. So I was eating like processed food, like cereals, bars. It didn't make any difference. I was just tracking my foods. So I did that for about 6 months. But I was falling into this trap of I had an eating disorder. And this is what led to anorexia eventually. So I did that for about a year, maybe 2 years. And I didn't realize that I was losing so much weight to the point where I could almost die. And this is what happened when we were on a family holiday. So back then we didn't have remote controls to switch the TV. And I got up off the chair, pressed the buttons on the TV. And within what I was told was this, that I collapsed for 5 minutes and my heart had stopped. That's what I was told. I haven't got a clue how it happened. All I remember is I'm on the ground and I have all these people around me trying to bring me back to life. And when I woke up, that's what I was told. So I was brought into the hospital in Spain at the time, and they had diagnosed me with anorexia. They checked my weight. At this time, I would have been around 16 years of age, and I would have been under 50 pounds in weight. So about 45, maybe 45. 45.
How tall are you?
5'3". So I'm not very tall at all. I'm only a small guy. So I think my lowest weight was around 44 pounds, very low. Oh. So there was nothing on my body. I was basically running off fumes. I was very thin. And they brought me in and they said, okay, we need to feed you. Okay, now when I went into this hospital, it was like a mental institution. They told me, okay, listen, you won't be allowed to go outside and play with other people. You won't be allowed to watch the TV unless you start eating. So that's the kind of orders I was told back then. So they were feeding me the same things like whey protein bars, mass gainer shakes, processed food, jelly and ice cream, just crap basically. And every time they tried to feed me, I wouldn't eat it because I had this fear with food. So every time they gave it to me, I'd throw it in the bin or I'd throw it into the toilet, and that was it. Until one night, my mother came in and held my hand, and she told me out straight, "We don't want to lose you." That was her exact words. I'll never forget it. "Son, we don't want to lose you." And ever since then, I was like, okay, I need to do something here. And that's when I started taking on the doctor's advice. And I was like, okay, you guys are the experts. I want you to help me. So I was in rehab for about maybe 2 or 3 years. Went home. They told me like this is the program you're going to follow. You're going to be on all these weight gainer shakes. You're going to be on all these like protein bars. The nutrition was absolutely horrendous, really bad. I put the weight back on. Everything improved, but my mental health was shit, like really bad. So then fast forward 3 years later, my mother and father told me that, listen, you're never going through that ever again, ever. So we're going to build some discipline into your life. So they said, we're going to put you into a rugby school. And this is when these guys are huge. They're massive guys,
I was
huge
going to
guys.
say rugby.
Yeah. So they brought me into the rugby school, and I remember speaking to the coach, and he was telling me like, we're going to teach you discipline. We're going to teach you how to put on weight the right way, and you're going to have a lot more confidence, and we're going to teach you how to build muscle. So I was like, okay, this is fantastic. I'm going to do this. So I did this around 17, 18 years of age, and I absolutely loved it. They had me in the gym 3 days a week. I was learning from the best coaches in the world. Everything went really well until every single year I was gaining weight. I was gaining a lot of weight. When I finished my rugby career, which is around 6 or 7 years later, I blew up to over 300 pounds.
Wow. So you went from 40 pounds to 300 pounds. And I just got to ask, before you started losing the weight when you were younger and, what ultimately led to the anorexia, how heavy do you think you were then?
Before the anorexia?
Yeah.
Before the anorexia, when I was when I had a bit of weight on me, I would have been around maybe 60 pounds, maybe 70 pounds roughly.
Okay. And so 70 down to 40 and now up to 300, over many years, but just amazing. What you probably, had a good amount of muscle, from your rugby career. In order to survive a rugby career, you kind of need that. But, when they said, we're going to teach you the right way to gain weight, during this rugby training, what did that look like? What were they having you do to gain the weight?
I would have been eating around 6 meals a day. And the majority of those 6 meals would have been heavily carbohydrate based. Okay. I would have had gels as well before and after training. I would have been having something during my training. So I'd say about 70% of my caloric intake was coming from like carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, oats, fruits, rice, all the healthy carbohydrates. We were told this is what I would have been eating. I would have been eating a good amount of protein as well, like whey protein, animal-based proteins as well, very minimal fats. I would have been eating my vegetables. So when you look back at it, I would have thought, okay, I'm eating healthy here. Everything's really, really good. And as I said, I was putting on a lot of size. I felt really good. I felt powerful. I felt strong. I felt really confident. But when I went down the pitch, I couldn't last 10 minutes running. Couldn't last 10 minutes. And when I used to walk up the stairs, I would be out of breath. And when I'm walking around, I used to be sweating. And I was like, this can't be normal. I'm only a small guy. I can't be walking around with this amount of weight on me. This can't be possible or normal. And the guys used to say to me, this is your career now. This is what you're doing now. You're playing rugby, so you have to put on a bit of size because this is an impact sport. You can't be going around like very thin. The things I used to be told was just unbelievable, crazy.
Incredible.
Okay. We got to 300 pounds.
Yeah. You're obviously not 300 pounds any longer.
No.
Let's talk about what the next evolution was.
So when I came out of that, I decided, okay, what do I want to do next? So I said, I love fitness. I want to be more involved in fitness. So I went in and done a PT course. So that went on for nearly a year, personal training course. That went on for about a year and a half. And then I started working in gyms. And everything went really well. But then I noticed that we weren't allowed to give out nutrition advice in the gyms. I was like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. How can I train people and just focus on training and not give them the right nutrition advice? So I was like, okay, that's not what we're going to do here. So I had to go back to nutrition school and learn a little bit about nutrition. And that's what I learned about the food pyramids. We learned about the carbohydrates are your main source of energy, then your vegetables, your proteins, and fats was always on the bottom. So that's what we were told to do. Follow the guidelines, be on a low-fat diet, make sure everybody's in a calorie deficit. Everything's based on the law of thermodynamics. This is what I was taught in nutrition school. And I did that for a while. And every time I coaxed people, I could get these people in amazing shape. But they would always get back to me and say, Mark, I'm struggling with my mental health. Mark, I'm struggling I have gut issues. Mark, I don't feel good. And I'd be like, I don't know what to do here. So I used to always say to these people, go and see your doctor because I don't know what to do. So for years, I did that, years. And then a couple of years later, I came across keto because I had done this myself. I could get in shape easily on a low calorie diet, but the problem was I couldn't sustain it, couldn't stick to it. And I was dealing with a lot of mental health issues and I could never fix the problem. And for me, I was like, okay, how do I fix this? I don't want to be on antidepressants for the rest of my life. So I was looking out there for the perfect diet and I came across keto by accident, actually. And I just eliminated the carbohydrate because I just felt they didn't agree with me at all because I was always bloated. I didn't feel good on carbohydrates. So I just said to myself, okay, what about if I just take them out and just eat vegetables and protein on its own? Let's just see what happens. And I did that for a while, but I wasn't eating enough fat. I was just eating a lot of protein and vegetables and I felt horrendous, miserable. So then I said, okay, what do I do next? Okay, let's add a little bit of fats. So I said, okay, I'll add in the almond butter, peanut butter, avocados. Again, couldn't get it right. I was like, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? Is this in my head? Is there something just wrong with me? And for years, I could never get it right until one day, this was 4 years ago, I listened to this podcast and I had Carnivore on it. And I had never heard of Carnivore in my life. This bodybuilder was talking about Carnivore. And 5 minutes into it, I was like, this is crazy. This doesn't make any sense. He's just eating meat. He's on a high fat diet. In my head, I was thinking about cholesterol, heart disease, all that kind of stuff. But the more he kept on speaking about it, his story resembled my story. It was absolutely identical. He struggled with his weight. He had an eating disorder. He had these issues with his gut also. And I was like, okay, this story is very similar to mine. So I'm going to listen to the rest of it. It's only 40 minutes. So I listened to the rest of it. And then when I finished, I said, I'm going to do this for a week. I'm just going to try it for a week. I'm going to take all the vegetables. I'm going to go on a high diet of red meat, eggs, water, and salt. That's all I'm going to have. Within 3 days, my mental health issues were gone. My digestive issues were gone. I was more alert. I wasn't tired anymore. I had more energy. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. This is insane. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this for another 3 months. If this does amazing stuff for me, I'm going to start coaching this now. So I did it for 3 months. I researched this nonstop. Every single day, I was looking up yourself, Ken Berry, Dr. Shafee. I'd done so much research into this diet you wouldn't believe. So much research. And I was like, oh my God, like why aren't people aware of this in the world? So I said, okay, I'm going to start coaching this. I'm not only going to start coaching this, I'm going to start doing some videos. I want people to understand what's going on in the world at the moment. So that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. I've been doing content, speaking to people. And I've always said that if I do one video and it just saves one person, just one person, and changes their life, then my job is done. That's pretty much what I've been doing.
Very, very inspiring story, and we'll get into it some more. But, something just kind of occurred to me because we've had many people like yourself on the program. And, of course, I, speak to patients and, people in this community all the time. Right. And So often I hear, right, I had a problem, and it might be different things, right? I started doing research for myself and I came across, low carb, keto, carnivore, whatever it is. And I tried it and it worked great. And, here I am wanting to tell others about it. I can't say I ever heard my entire career, medical school, my career as a surgeon, the 30 plus years I've been involved in medicine up until this point. I can't remember anyone ever coming to me and saying, I had a health problem. I did all my research and I found that the low fat diet, the food pyramid, was the answer to my problems. And it's just kind of amazing, right? People do the low fat diet, right? And they do the low calorie diet because they're told that's the answer to their problem, their doctor, government, whoever it is. I don't know of anyone who's come to that conclusion independently. And, here we have this massive community of people. And yeah, a lot of people, do carnivore because maybe they hear, someone like myself or Sean Baker or Anthony Chafee, whoever it is, say carnivore is great. But most of the people, they started researching for themselves. And this is the conclusion we come to. I guess I'd just love to hear kind of your perspective. You had all this background where, you were told what to do at first, right? You were kind of forced to do something. And then, you got some education and, were told that was the right thing to do. But then you ultimately come to that. Like I said, it just struck me, you're not the first person who's kind of told that story, but that kind of perspective on it just came to me for the first time. Love to hear your thoughts on it.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, at the end of the day, we're told every day from these people that we just need to trust the science, go off the research. This study says that, but we're not focusing on real people. We're not focusing on people like myself that have been there, that have been struggled, that never could get the answers. And this is what's really frustrating at the moment, because every time I have these conversations with these nutritionists, dietitians, they'll just keep coming back at me. This study says this. And I'm like, listen, I don't care what these studies say. I want to speak to you directly. I want to have this open conversation with you face to face, and let's have a civilized debate and let the audience hear both sides of the argument so they can make up their own minds. This whole texting back and forth, I'm not into it at all. Like I said, I studied nutrition like 20 odd years ago. Those certificates that I got during nutrition school, I burnt them a year ago. They're gone. I don't use them anymore. That's how much I believe in the system. Simple.
Yeah. So
I paid a fortune for that course. Absolute fortune.
Yeah. Talk about the mental health aspects of this, right? You said, you were basically institutionalized, right? And you had the anorexia, the eating disorder, and you had obviously, that involves a lot of unhealthy, we'll say mental energy, around food and things like that. You sound like that has gone away, right? That's better. Talk about that part of it, right? It's not just about the physical changes that you've had.
I'll give you a quick story. I've said this on many podcasts and I'll never forget it. I struggled with my mental health for a very long time. I was in a deep spare of depression. I was on the verge of suicide on many occasions. I had no problem doing it and I was ready for it. And there was one night it got really bad. This was around 6 years ago. And I told my girlfriend, I said, listen, you'd be better off without me. There's something wrong with me. I think you're better off without me. And then one night I got into my car. This is around 12 o'clock, around this time, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And I got in my car and I drove on the highway and the car was going very quickly. I was doing about 120 miles an hour on the highway. And I kept on saying to myself, okay, I'm in emotional pain at the moment. Nobody can help me. I'm not going to be on antidepressants for the rest of my life. I know a little bit about nutrition. There's something wrong with me. There's nobody that can help me. If I can't help myself, I'm pretty sure nobody can help me. So I just said to myself, if I'm in this so much pain, if I just speed this car up another 20 and go as fast as I can and just hit a pole head on, all this pain will be gone. And I was fully ready for it. And I was 2 minutes away from hitting that pole. 2 minutes. And I'll never forget it. This little voice shouted in my head, and it was my daughter. And she shouted in my ears, "Please don't do it, Daddy." That's all I heard. That's all I heard. When I did that, I stopped the car, I pulled over, I put my head into the steering wheel, and I cried for about 15, 20 minutes. I begged God to help me. I was in so much physical, emotional pain. And every time I talk about this, I get really emotional about it, really emotional. It just, yeah, it just really gets to me. It really gets to me. And that I could have left my daughter behind, because that's what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing a lot of people taking their own lives. And I believe that's all down to diet. I really believe that. I know a lot of people will say that you're mental, you're crazy. It's just something that I believe. I just believe that we're feeding the body the wrong food. What you feed the gut is going to have a major impact on your brain. And that's what I was doing. I was giving my body the wrong food. I was feeling crap. Even though I looked amazing, I was still walking around with a six-pack. I looked absolutely incredible, but nobody could understand what was going on the inside, and nobody could see it. Nobody, only me. And us men, we're very good at hiding these things. We're just saying, we're fine. We're good. Everything's good. I used to say it to my missus all the time. I'm fine. Because I'm the role model. I should be the father. I should be the man of the house saying, listen, don't worry about anything else. I'll look after you. You guys will be fine. I'll look after you. But nobody was looking after me. And I felt really weak at times when I wasn't ashamed to admit it. I would sit in my room and I'd have a cry for 5 minutes. And that went on for a very long time. Now I'm at a stage in my life where that's gone. That's gone. I'm the role model now for so many people out there now when I take people on. I have the belief now. I'm like, you know what? I've been there. I know exactly how you're feeling, and we're going to get out of this. I'm going to help you get out of this. Because as I said, I've been there, and I feel like someone has to be there in order to help other people. That's my belief.
Yeah. So 3 days, you're saying? You went from feeling horrendous to it all going away in 3 days.
3 days. I was ready. I was fully ready for it. Fully ready for it.
Phil, can you maybe talk about the biology, the physiology of what Mark experienced by changing what he was eating? I realize it's the neuroside is not your expertise, but I know you know more than I do.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of emerging evidence of, the effects that sugar and these processed foods have on the brain and causing inflammation in the brain, and just, in the end, not being the proper fuel. We talk about, put the wrong, it's like putting gas into the electric engine. Yeah, it's energy, but it's not the right energy. It's not the right fuel for that engine, and it's just not going to work. And we're seeing more and more, and again, we've had Chris Palmer, we've had Georgia Ede, we've had, others on talking about this emerging realization of the link between metabolic health and mental health. And I think Mark is just another example of that. And these problems, right? People say anorexia, right? You ask most, mental health professionals, most doctors, anorexia is a lifelong disease, right? It's an incurable disease. We try and set boundaries for people that struggle with this to help them, kind of manage with this. But prior to, really coming to keto carnivore, right, and really only within the last few years within keto carnivore community is the first time I ever heard people talk about, curing anorexia. And I would say that Mark has cured his anorexia at this point. And Mark's not the only one that I know of within the community that has done that. And there's now been case reports published on this. And it's a very real thing that's happening with this.
And I just add as well, like I suffered with anorexia, but at the moment, you can clearly see what's going on in the world at the moment. Everybody's struggling with an eating disorder because everybody's on a low-calorie diet. Everybody's on a form of restriction. They're just focusing on calories. You can see the pain in their faces. You can see the stress in their faces. You can see they don't want to do this. You can clearly see it. And you can clearly see that it's not working. And this is the reason why they have this fear of food. Then they struggle with body dysmorphia. This is what I struggled with for years. And it took me a long time to get out of it. And this is what I'm currently seeing in the gym at the moment. I see all these influencers that are just promoting all this. You can look this way, just eat it. You can eat this food in moderation. And it's the wrong information. It's just the wrong message we're giving people. And it's very frustrating for me when I live in a country where I can't have these conversations with people. Everybody's just focusing on, again, like I said, low fat diet, the calorie model, all that kind of stuff. But the minute I mention keto or carnivore, and that's the reason why I didn't put carnivore in my bio, in my Instagram bio, because the minute I put carnivore mark on it, people are just going to scroll past. They're going to be like, okay, this guy's a wacko. This guy is a joke. This guy's not real. So I was like, okay, if I want to help these people, I can't put carnivore in this, unfortunately. I have to take these people in, educate them, and eventually I can lead them on the other side and show them that maybe you don't need carbohydrates, maybe you don't need vegetables. But if I take these people on straight away and tell them, okay, you're going to eliminate these all at the very beginning, it's never going to work. Never, because these people don't understand they have a food addiction in the first place. So if you have a food addiction in the first place, it takes a bit of time to come out of it. It's like someone who's a drinker, who's an alcoholic. You're not going to tell this person, okay, just go cold turkey and stop drinking. It's not going to happen. You got to give this person a bit of time. So I just don't understand why we're living in a world at the moment where we don't see sugar addiction and food addiction as a problem. Because if we did, we wouldn't be encouraging these people to eat this crap in moderation.
You said something that I really hope, when I read between the lines, I hope I read wrong. Do you face any kind of legal issues in Ireland
As in,
for talking about?
oh yeah, if I speak anything about this now to like top people, like I'm working with a client at the moment who works in the health sector, and she's told me many stories. And I've been trying my best to get her on my podcast. She told me a story there about 6 weeks ago that a 39-year-old came into her clinic. I think it was a female, and she had type 2 diabetes. She had it over 2 years, and it got really, really bad. And she was on metformin. It got really bad. They had to bring her in and remove her leg. Remove her leg. Okay. After the surgery, guess what they fed her? More sugar, more carbohydrates. Yeah. And I was like, okay, you need to get onto my podcast and you need to speak about this. And she was like, Mark, I can't. And that's when I was like, oh my God, we're in serious trouble. We can't even speak about this. And every time I do a video, a controversial video, something about this, like on say Instagram or TikTok, immediately it gets shut down straight away. It's insane. It's just, we're on our own, guys. We're on our own. And we're up against the rich people in the world, unfortunately. And this is the way it's going to be for a very long time, unfortunately.
You know, my perception, this show, God, how long have we been doing this show, Phil? 4 years? Is that in that 4 year period, we've seen a dramatic shift in the general awareness of the poisons that we have been ingesting for 40 years, let's say. And it's much more common to hear about the problems with seed oils, the fact that type 2 diabetes is in fact reversible, that pouring all kinds of chemicals into our bodies is probably not very smart. 4 years ago, we felt like we were kind of a voice crying in the wilderness. And now, I'm not saying it's by any means the dominant or the majority opinion, but there's a whole lot more people doing it. I guess I believed that our mess here in the United States was the worst version of the mess. I'm hearing I was probably mistaken. Phil, you're muted.
maybe give a little perspective. I would say certainly the US food environment is the worst in the world at this point. But, we've done a pretty good job, right? Being the capitalist that we are, of exporting, a lot of that now. But, I still think the US has the worst food environment. But I think our information environment, thankfully, the getting counter narratives out in the world these days seems to be a lot easier in the US than it is in many other places. So it's interesting to hear kind of your experiences, Mark, and maybe you can expand on that a little bit, what it's been like in Ireland in terms of that information environment.
It's not as bad as, it's nowhere near as America. I was only in Florida there a couple of months ago, and I couldn't believe the amount of choices you guys have over there. It's unbelievable. And when I looked at the ingredients, I was like, oh my God, this is insane, really bad. So when I look at my supermarket, even though it's bad, it's nowhere near as bad as you guys. It really is. But in saying that, like, a lot of people over here have it too easy. Like, it's getting more expensive over here to buy proper food, and what's very cheap in this country is processed food. So they're making it easier for people to buy processed food in this country, unfortunately. And that's why in this country, we have a major problem with type 2 diabetes. I know it's probably the same all over the world. Obesity. We have kids young as 6 years of age that are walking around now with fatty liver diseases at a young age. It's just absolutely horrendous. And I see this every single week in my local supermarket. I can see what people are buying. I only look at people and I'm looking at, oh my God, you're spending an absolute fortune on this garbage. So that's all it is. And I've had these conversations in my local supermarket. People have said to me, when I'm putting, say, a lot of beef into my trolley, they're looking at me and saying, are you crazy? You're going to have a heart attack. Why are you eating all that beef? Are you not worried about the amount of fat that you're eating? And then I'm looking at these people, and these people are clearly overweight. They're metabolically unhealthy. You're looking in their trolley, they've got all the cakes, the carbohydrates, there's very little protein, very little nutrition. And it's like, what's going on? And see, this is the issue, because nobody's focusing on this. And at the end of the day, we have the top experts in this country. You'll see them on TV every day, the dietitians, the nutritionists, and they're always going on. You can have this food in moderation, guys. There's no problems. No problems. Have your chocolate. No problems. Don't get scared. You don't need to get scaremongered into all this. Like, you need to be in high levels of cholesterol and being on a high fat diet. You can, at the end of the day, life is for living. You should be able to live your life. And if you want to eat this stuff in moderation, there you go. So when that's constantly in our faces all the time, you can be damn sure people are going to be listening to that. And then plus, when you switch on your TV, every second ad nowadays has like ads to do with Pringles, McDonald's, pizza, like every second ad. So it's literally in your face all the time. How can you escape from that?
I guess most people escape through a path similar to yours, hopefully not as severe, but they just get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
And isn't it unfortunate that we have to wait until people are desperate before they make that decision?
And that's why we're here. That's
the unfortunate thing. We're trying our best to educate people, but they don't make that decision until they're really in a really dark place. Like I was. When I was in a dark place, I was giving up. I was like, okay, I've done it all. What else is there? There's nothing else I can do apart from just go on this carnivore diet. And I've always said this to people, like, this lifestyle now is not just a job to me, it's personal. I've seen what's done to me. I've seen what's done to people that I've worked with. Like you mentioned, they've reversed their type 2 diabetes. I've seen people that were in severe pain with endometriosis, fibromyalgia, like the list goes on and on. I've seen people, like young women, struggle with endometriosis in severe period of pain, and their mothers have reached out to me. And I don't have a PhD. I'm not a doctor. But I'm like, okay, this is down to inflammation. Okay, maybe if we remove the problem, the sugar, the carbohydrates, let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Let's just give it a go. And when these guys come back to me and saying, Mark, you won't believe this. Our pain is eased. You put it into remission after 4 to 6 weeks. This is what gives me joy. This is what I like to hear. And then I'm like, okay, listen, you need to share this to the world now. You just need to say to the world, like, listen, I struggled with this. So there's going to be other people out there that will hear your story. And that's why I decided, like, you know what? Because I was always one of those people that was always shy behind the camera. You would never put me in front of a camera ever. But when I found out what this is doing for me, I was like, I can't keep this a secret. I need to tell people what's going on. I need to tell people if this has done amazing things for me, then the rest of the world need to know about this.
Yeah, we agree. We're in violent agreement, but I don't know that I've ever heard. I mean, I'm so glad, Mark, that you're here, that you have this story to share. I'm trying to go through our list of guests. Who's had a more horrifying story? I don't know. It's kind of like you had all the things that can go wrong.
Definitely inspiring stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about, what kind of the logistics of, how you work with people, right? How people get started, what tends to maybe, what brings people to you commonly? What are some of the common things that you see? And, what does it look like to help someone else come to these same realizations, that you came to?
So what I do pretty much is I just plant the seeds. How I do that is I just do a video. I do a video on whatever, cholesterol. It could be fats. It could be something that's controversial in the world at the moment. Let's say it's pretty popular now in the world at the moment. I've done many videos on this, and I just explain to people. Like I only did a video there the other day where I just took out eggs out of the fridge, and I just put on a caption underneath it. Here's your natural Ozempic right here. Have 12 of these. Eat them pretty much every single day, and you'll be fine. Come back to me, and what a doctor would say, come back to me tomorrow and let me hear how you're getting on. So that's all I did. And people go away and they actually try this. They actually try it and they're like, okay, and then they message me and they're a week later and they're like, you know what, Mark, I've been watching you for months and I feel so much better. Like my mental health issues are getting better. I used to suffer with an autoimmune issue. That's getting better. I'm off my medication. I get a lot of people saying that to me. I'm off my medication. And that's basically when these people just reach out to me. They're saying like, okay, I've watched you for months. I trust you. I want to work with you. So I'm like, okay, let's jump on a call. We jump on a call. We're talking for about 20 minutes. I tell them exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do this in phases. Tell me where you are at the moment. If they're saying to me, I'm still eating a lot of carbohydrates, I'm like, okay, no problem at all. But what we'll do is eventually you'll come out of that. Now, I never say this to them. I just let them do their own thing, and then they give me the information. So what I do is at the beginning, I remove all the processed food. That's all I do. Every bit of processed food we get rid of. The second thing we do is we remove all the carbohydrates. Then the third thing we do, these people will actually give me some feedback and they'll be like, Mark, I'm looking great, but I'm not feeling great. And then I'm saying to them, okay, what about if we just eliminate the vegetables? At this stage, they trust me 100%. So whatever I say, they're just going to do it. So, okay, I'm going to eliminate the fruits and I'm going to eliminate the vegetables. Automatically, things improve even better. So all they're looking at now is just basically a steak on their plates. Whereas if I say to someone at the very beginning, okay, you're going to come on board with me and work with me, and all you're going to do is just eat meat on its own, on the plate. Psychologically, they're going to look at that and say, this is never going to work, never. But if I actually teach them how we're going to actually do this and guide them in the right direction, not only are they going to get in shape, they're going to feel great, but they're going to understand why they do it. And I want to make sure when these people finish with me, they never go on a diet ever again. Never. They're doing this for pretty much the rest of their lives. Their life starts at 50, 60, 70. I have people that have reached out to me in their 60s. Like what we mentioned a few minutes ago, these people are desperate, really desperate. And they were like, okay, my life is stopped. I'm on this medication. I'm going to be on this for the rest of my life. And then I'm like, listen, you don't need to be healthy. You don't need to take medication to be healthy. And that's what I explained to these people. What about if we just focus on the food first? Let's see what we can do with the food. Let's see if we can bring that inflammation down. Let's see if we can actually control your cravings, control your hunger, and get you a lot healthier. Let's see then what happens when we come off the medication. I would never say to anybody, come off your medication. If you're on medication at the moment, okay, that's fine. But what I would say is this: how long are you going to be on that for? And that's where I try and work towards. I try and get people, there should be always some sort of escape when you're coming out and when you're on your medication. You should not be on medication for the rest of your life.
No, it's funny. We do this week after week, hour after hour, and sometimes forget. I should back up. If you take the low-hanging fruit, if you do the thing, the 20% of the stuff that gives you the 80% of the result, it's easy to get focused on trying to get that last little bit of perfection. And we forget that most people who are struggling don't even know about that really simple 20% solution. And having somebody just say, look, try it for a week. Just try it. It's not going to kill you in a week. Just try it and come back.
Absolutely. What have you got to lose? Nothing.
What have you got to lose?
Yeah, and the simple starts, right? And for like Jack said, it's easy for those of us who have been doing this for a long time, and having the great success to kind of forget what starting looks like, right? And so, when you make that first decision, right? And for some people, it's instead of drinking 6 sodas a day, I'm going to drink 3 sodas a day, right? And you just start with that simple stuff that compounds over time and gets you to the point where you can really start to fix all of your issues. Again, your journey has been amazing, and I think it inspires and will continue to inspire a lot of people. Maybe tell people where they can find you, where they can follow you, so that they can learn more about that.
Thanks again, Philip, for having me on. And if people want to find out a little bit about myself, I'm on social media on Instagram and TikTok at fitnessbeyondtime01. If you guys want to get in contact with me, you can send me an email at ennismark93@gmail.com. I also have my own podcast. It's called Carnivore Evolution. And I also take part in another carnivore or another podcast with 2 other guys, Tony and Peter, and that's called The Meat of the Matter. And we do that every Sunday on YouTube.
Very good. We'll make sure that all of that contact information is available in the show notes. So you can just go there, click on it, and get connected. Our guest has been Mark Ennis. Thank you for joining us from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Hopefully you'll be able to wind down and get a good night's sleep. This has been
Thanks very much, guys.
Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Chances are you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't need to change your life and get healthier. So take action right now. Book a call with Dr. Ovadia's team. One small step in the right direction is all it takes to get started. Contact us at ifixhearts.com/talk. That's ifixhearts.com/talk.